Hello everyone, Super Marcey here with another video right here at the Super Network YouTube channel. Please be sure to give us a subscribe and like the video. Well, hopefully you like it. So doing something a little bit different. This is not a Movies That Make Marcey video. I have decided to have a little talk about disturbing movies. But there's two in particular that for me are probably always going to be the most disturbing films to me personally, and why I actually find them quite disturbing. I wanted to talk about it because I've noticed sort of, I guess, a trend in the last, 12 months maybe, I could be wrong, that there's sort of these icebergs where you start at the very top, or the more well-known stuff, and then they slowly go down tiers to sort of the bottom of the barrel, the most unknown, obscure stuff. And there's definitely a few different ones for, I guess, disturbing or controversial movies. And it seems like the ones that are like quite down the bottom are more sort of snuffish, just really gross out, bizarre stuff that you're not likely to really see. So think like Two Girls, One Cup type of stuff. Like, I don't necessarily think stuff like that's disturbing. It's just gross. And at least for me, something to be disturbing, I guess I have to take that more seriously. And I need something that's like based more in reality. And to me, for something for me personally to find quite disturbing that it really just shakes me, there has to be something, reality based with it. And there are a lot of, I guess people have said, like, say, a Serbian film might be one of the most disturbing movies ever made. And I've seen that movie several times and I don't necessarily find it disturbing because there's an element I really can't take that movie genuinely or seriously. Like, it's a representation of something else, and it just, in that way, it doesn't necessarily work for me. Like, yeah, there are bits that are hard to watch, it's disgusting, but not quite, I guess. And there's other ones like Irreversible, where it's mainly this one particular scene that is really messed up, it's hard hitting, but I don't think the rest of the movie quite gets to that level. And the two main films that I find quite disturbing, like on face value, you might be thinking, how do you find this disturbing? So that's why I'm going to go into it and explain why. In particular, the two movies I have always found to be the most disturbing are not necessarily going to be what you think. The first movie I want to talk about is Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, and it is a decently well-known film. It stars Michael Rooker as Henry, and the character is loosely based on the real-life serial killer Henry Lee Lucas. So it's kind of a fictionalized look at someone that could have been real, because I know there's a lot of I guess, whether Henry Lee Lucas made up as much as he did or what's actually true. So it is, it's more like this myth in a way of what he represents. And why I find this to be something that disturbs me so much, I think it's the fact that Michael Rooker actually plays this character flawlessly. Like, he gives me chills. And meeting the actual person behind it, meeting Michael Rooker, and he did sign I think it's a Dutch DVD that he had never seen before, so that was cool. But you meet him and you can see he's not this character, and it's so bizarre because he really just, I think, gives one of the best performances I've ever seen. And Henry is a really complex character, and it's the way that he plays him. You find yourself having so much sympathy, and there are things you can kind of relate to with Henry, but deep down there is so much that is messed up with that, because he is a cold-blooded killer. No matter what, he goes with those impulses, which are not good impulses. And you do see that in, in graphic scenes that are very hard to watch. But that's not quite what gets to me. It is the fact that Henry is such a, I guess, fleshed out character that, again, when you're finding yourself thinking that this feels like someone I might know, and that is something that just messes me up, because what if someone like that person next door, was really this killer who couldn't feel remorse for what they had done? And that, to me, disturbs me. That messes me up. That always will mess me up with this film. Because Henry, again, there are scenes where you really feel for this character, but it doesn't feel right, because you know what he's done and what he will do. And it really leaves you just feeling a lot of things that are uncomfortable. So for me, Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer is one of the most disturbing films for me personally. And it is probably one you might not really find on one of these icebergs, because I think for something to really affect you in such a strong way, it can't just be about the gore or the grossness, stuff like that. It has to really hit hard and evoke these kinds of responses within you to be that chilling and that disturbing. And it is not the easiest film to watch, even though I have seen it quite a number of times. But it is worth it every time, because it does just bring up all these weird feelings and emotions, and it really just leaves me unsettled. And I think in a way you're almost like, it sort of heightens your senses, and you start to question the people around you, like, could they be like a Henry? And I think this film doesn't get, I guess, like, acknowledged as much for the power it has. And one of the most famous moments, the picture you always see with this film, is when Henry is looking into the mirror and he can see that monster that he is. And I know that there are times where you do look at your own reflection and you can see reflected back things that you don't particularly like about yourself, or you will remember things that you might regret. And just like that shot and what it means and what it brings up, it's so powerful. If it is a film you haven't seen, or you don't necessarily maybe think it is like that kind of messed up movie, it truly is. And maybe it's just the way that I've seen it, but I find Henry to be so much more disturbing than, say, a Serbian film, or even like Sallow. Whereas Sallow is like such an exaggeration of this idea, and it just didn't quite hit me the same way. And the other film that, to this day, it still messes with my head, and it's right up there with, like, I guess films that it's hard to say it's a favorite because of what it's about and what it is, but it really, again, it's just in the same way that Henry unsettles me so much. And again, it's not something people might consider like at all. And it has one of those one of these sort of villainous characters that is so unexpected and not what you think. And it really, again, it just messes me up. So I know I've probably mentioned this movie quite a few times if you've listened to podcasts and look at the website. The other film that I find so disturbing is, I'm not sure how to actually pronounce it properly, Spoorloss, or The Vanishing, the original version, not the remake which I think had Kiefer Sutherland and Sandra Bullock. This one, it is not a film that you're going to be left on a happy note. There's no sense of real happiness in this film, and because it is about a man searching for his partner after she disappeared, and you find out exactly what happened to her, and you see the man that abducted her, and you find out what he did. But this guy, again, like Henry, just feels like an everyman. And that's what I find so messed up. Like, it's the most unsuspecting person. And his performance is so pitch perfect. Like, he really gives me chills. And there are some moments in this film where, again, you feel like there's a hint of relatability. This could be someone you know in your life. And when you actually find out just what he's capable of, it really messed with me, and it has one of the most bleakest and just upsetting endings a film could have. And just the whole package for this is, I find that really, really disturbing. It plays into, I guess, my own fears being, it is not really, I guess in general, there are times where as a female, when you're by yourself, you don't necessarily feel safe. You're always listening, looking over your shoulder. And it does kind of get to me in that way because the character that gets taken is a female. And ultimately what happens to her, I think, just in human nature, it is one of the biggest fears that we would hate to ever have to, I guess, deal with. And it's not a position anyone would want to be in, and it is so frightening. That, I think, plays into that aspect of why this film is so disturbing to me. But it really is that core villainous character who's not your, like, typical, I guess, antagonist at all. And it does make you think, like, the real people who are capable of this, they don't look like, Freddy Krueger or Jason Voorhees. They look like that person that lives next door that you see every day, you might wave to. That's what it is. And that is just part of human nature in a way, that everyone has a capability of being so evil and having these wants and needs, but I guess at the same time we are all very much capable of not being that. And it really reminds you that people are so different. We have so many flaws, and you need to kind of watch out for yourself and others not to go down those dark roads. So yeah, it is these two movies that I find the most disturbing personally. And I don't necessarily see them on a lot of these lists. It's all very, very typical. And again, I've mentioned it several times, but a Serbian film seems to always come up. And as I explained, like, for me, that just doesn't have that level that this does. I think this really hits into a lot of different aspects of the, I guess, in the human psyche. And I do highly recommend them. It is, we watch films to feel so many different things, so many emotions. And I recommend it because sometimes you just need to have that unease. You need to watch something that hits you so hard. And I'd be interested to know what films, like, other people have found really disturbing on the level that these two are. Because I find that quite fascinating. I want to know, like, what do you find messed up? If, it is a Serbian film or whichever, like, nothing wrong with that. I have my reasons, I've explained my reasons, and I'd love to hear why. That could be the most disturbing thing someone has seen. So definitely let me know. And I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope if you haven't seen these films, you do check them out. And if you have seen them, maybe give them another look. And yeah, so as always, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can check us out at supermarcey.com. And if you want to show support and get exclusives and early access to podcasts, please check us out at patreon.com/supermarcey. patreon.com/the Super Network. And if you want to check out my art, please go to patreon.com/the Art of MP. All the PG rated stuff is up there publicly. With that, I bid you farewell and happy watching some disturbing movies. Bye guys.